So I have the pleasure of introducing Mickey Morgan, and Mickey and I actually worked together for a while at Oakwood School. He's one of the critical members of the history department and is amazing at getting kids engaged in social change and through service learning. So Mickey's going to talk to us a lot about what he does, how he organizes it, and hopefully you should generate ideas about service learning just by hearing about what he's doing in his classes. So.
Thanks a lot. I don't do service learning per se. I'm a history teacher. I teach philosophy and film and human geography and a lot of other things. And I have to say my focus is older kids. I teach grades 10 and 12, and I mostly work with kids in grades 9 through 12. So some not, some more extensively, but I hope it's still helpful. Some of the things I'm going to say to people who have a wider distribution. I really like Kim's talk. I haven't read too much about service learning per se as a technical term. I look on the learning part of what I've been doing. The service is to be of service to others, right? And I have a big preference for working with people rather than for them. That is, the more you can connect to the people with whom you're serving and feel that you're involved in some joint endeavor, I think the better it works out for everybody all around on the whole. It's not always possible. Sometimes you're just raising money to send to far-off places and such, but it's a good idea, in my opinion. And partly because it allows a second kind of learning. The two kinds of learning, I think, that go with doing this kind of work are first of all learning about an issue or a situation or a problem and such, whatever it is, right? Whether it's homelessness and what life in Skid Row is like or whatever. And the second, which I think is incredibly important for kids, and this is why the working with and the continuity is important, is learning people. I mean, really coming to understand people who are radically different from yourself. A lot of kids in our school are mostly upper middle kids, Valley, Hancock Park, and so forth. And they all refer to bubbles in which they live. Everybody has some version of a bubble. Working with people who are different, not different in some weird way, but just like have different lives, live in different neighborhoods is really important if you can do it in such a way that it really develops what we call in the trade a relationship, right? So you're not just showing up and doing X, Y, and Z and splitting. So those are desiderata that I have in mind when I kind of think about whether a certain service project would be a good thing. Is it something that's going to go on for a while? Is it going to involve the kids with people in an interesting and humanly accessible way? And, is it something where they're really going to be working with people and not just working? It's kind of ironic, one of the most pleasing things I've ever done in the state. Happened 20 years ago. I've been in Oakwood a long time. There were a bunch of kids. I don't know how this even got generated. It was very, very we didn't have a very full-bodied, blooded, whatever program at the time. It was at an old age home down the street from where the school was. And I went with about 12 or 15 Oakwood kids every week, once a week, after school. And for like 4 or 5 hours, they hung out with these people, men and women, old women, who were starved for company and alone, and they played gin rummy, and they talked, and they brought pictures of their families, and the older people would go upstairs to their rooms and drag down pictures for them. It was terrific. And we did this for almost a year, and it was like, it doesn't sound like monumental or glamorous, but it was a big deal for the kids. And I think it was really a very satisfying thing. Nobody thought of this as work, right? And it wasn't even clear that service in any kind of fancy way was being provided. It was a great experience for everybody all concerned, and they learned tons. Kind of obvious, like what it's like to be old and alone, and stuff about the home that these people were in as well. And it wasn't, the au courant kind of causes du jour, but it was really a really good thing. And I think you can find that kind of stuff around, but it takes, the person who ran the home was a very open person to this. It has a lot to do with who's involved in what and how open they are to you and what you want to do and how explicit you can talk about what your ideas are. So Zara asked me to talk about some stuff that I've done, which is kind of global. I don't know if this is the thing that you're most interested in. It's kind of relevant because it involves two very different trajectories of thinking about connecting with people. And then I thought I do a lot of stuff with groups in the city, from East LA to Skid Row and stuff like that. And I thought I could just talk a little bit, kind of superficially almost, about that stuff, but I'm really happy to answer questions, and if any of you ever want to just email me about stuff, it's the Oakwood email, mmorgan@oakwoodschool.org. I'm happy to do that. I do a lot of emailing. So the two big projects that I've done for quite a long time, one is with 13 villages in Chiapas, Mexico. Chiapas is the poorest state in Mexico, adjacent to Guatemala, and we have been working with indigenous women in these villages for 13 years. We started, this is actually important because I could not have done this all by myself. I'd never been in Mexico. I do speak Spanish, which was a plus, but one of our graduates had been in Chiapas after the uprising in 1994, the Zapatista uprising, and so she had established a lot of connections, and one of her last projects, she was there for about 7 years, was to get a group of women from different villages together to sell artisan stuff that they would make, right? Because there's no way to sell corn in Mexico anymore for people who are native to it, and they needed to have money. Most of the men had left their village, no work in the south of Mexico, and the stuff you may have heard about, immigration issues, right? Starts after 1994 when America floods Mexico with corn. Anyway, so we had a great start, and I don't know, it's very difficult to start this sort of thing without someone down there who people trust, because a lot of it's based on trust. And I went down there in 1999 with one student and two people from a nonprofit low-income housing group downtown, Esperanza. And we hung out with the women and talked, and they trusted us, and we set up a project because we got some foundation money from New York to give them classes every other month in the city. They lived out in the jungle or in the mountains, and stitching and dyeing and design. And they sent the stuff that they made to us because there's no market down there. It's the tale of the third world. And we agreed to try to sell it all over Los Angeles. And we were bumblers at the beginning. We didn't know what we were doing. We sold in this market, the Mercado La Paloma, which is down near USC, for a couple of years. Our first year we made $733 for them. We thought, fantastic, who would have ever expected? And right now we're making about $70,000 a year. So we have sent them almost $700,000 in 12 years. It's made a lot of difference down there, not as much as you might think. They're unbelievably poor. But it's just about going around. I mean, millions of kids are involved. We go to festivals, music festivals. We have, you remember Tupperware parties. We have Chiapas house parties in parents' homes, wealthy-ish parents, and they invite their friends and acquaintances. We go to fair trade thingies, all over the place. So it's been a wonderful thing. And then in June, after school, I take about 20, 25 kids to Chiapas, and we hang out with the women in their villages. It's a really pretty intense experience. I'm getting choked up thinking about it because it was really a big trip this year. It's very emotionally kind of transformative for a lot of the kids, and there's a lot of, quote, learning involved. You have to understand we spend a lot of time with economic and political groups in Chiapas when we visit. The kids read a lot. We show movies about this and that and so forth. So it's been, quote, a learning experience, and I think actually the relation with the women has been a phenomenal experience for them. I mean, I'm not even sure I would classify it as learning in a conventional way, but it's really deepened and given them much more texture as people than they had before. And it's a big plus, I mean, for the women, obviously. This year, for the first year, I just want to share, we have decided to invite 4 women to Oakwood in January. I don't know how this is going to work. They have no concept of how wealthy these kids are, and I'm a little nervous about walking into their homes, but we're gonna give it a try. It's reciprocity is important, and I've just been scared basically probably about the screwing up a really golden relationship. So the moral of this is twofold for me, and I get stuff from other people. I just got something from someone who works in Morelia, which is in the center of Mexico, and some nonprofit that he is involved with that provides medical care. Has built a clinic for very poor indigenous people who live on outskirts of town there, and wanted to know if we wanted to do the same kind of thing, get involved with artisan production, because they need money. Everybody needs money in a money economy. And so I think, we're trying to see if parents at our school might want to, sort of take charge of this, because I cannot. It's a bit about, checking out. Mexico is a nightmare right now with all the drug stuff. Chiapas is like an oasis a bit. There's no drugs there. It's got a legacy of violence from the Zapatista stuff, but we haven't really encountered that, but parents used to be freaked about it. But other parts of Mexico might be very difficult right now, because it's like a Wild West show. I don't know if I would really be happy with projects down there. But there's lots of parts of the world, including much of South America, which is a gold mine. South America is a very progressive area in general terms right now. But the moral of the story, so to speak, is that I think it's really, really good to have somebody who has a very intimate connection with people down there. The women send us boxes of stuff 3 times a year. We don't pay for it. We send them money as we sell it. It's like a big commitment of trust, right, to do that. So, and that's been true from the get-go. So that's something we've done, and it's been, as I said, it's been a pretty good thing. I think I gave you guys a website for it. We have a bilingual website. The other thing is very different, and it's the other option, I think, and I'm a big fan of it because I think it's really important to have something there, not just kind of invent wheels as you wander around the territory. Is to work with nonprofits who are already doing cool stuff, and there's one group that we've worked with for 7 years now, I think 7 years, called Global Nomads. Do any of you know about this? It's a group in New York City, and they do a lot of video conferencing. So our very first year, we were able to talk with kids in a refugee camp in Uganda, and it's a phenomenal learning experience, but I'm not sure about the service part. I mean, you could say it's nice, it cheers up the kids to know, it's kind of lame. And it's also one shot. Their conferences are 1 week. You meet twice in a week, and you talk to these people, and then that's it. And so it's hard. They do provide a lot of curricular stuff, online stuff, and articles, so that the kids doing this get a lot of background. This past year, though, they started something new and different, which I wanted to recommend this group to you because I think they want to continue to do this. We were one of 4 schools in the country paired with a high school class in Kabul, Afghanistan, and we met with them all year long. We had 6 video conferences with them. We shared a website, and we did a joint activist project together. We made a video, and they made a video about the role of women in Afghanistan. It's a girls' school. Education segregated there, so we had girls. And that was fantastic, and we're doing it again this year. It's a 2-year program. So it's a good group. I recommend it to you because especially as they get more than just these 1-week deals, and they have a bunch of them this year. There is one this year that it's still open to you to do. I'm not trying to push and nudge, obviously, but it's really a good thing. It's called the 1 Million Bones Challenge. Kind of a weird idea, I guess, but the Bezos family, who own Amazon.com and are doing quite well, thank you, are contributing $1 for every bone that a kid builds that is a replica of a human bone, and it's linked to humanitarian aid for the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Somalia. So there's one video conference that you're in during the course of the year. You got lots of weeks to choose from, and you talk to kids from the DRC. And the bones can be artistically, pizzazzy, they're not necessarily just meant to be, white bones. You can have messages and pictures. You can use recycled materials. So we're having these big bone-making weekends this fall at school. And it's one of those lovely projects that can involve everybody. Parents, lower school kids. We have a lower school, and it's very difficult to get projects that seem to encompass lots. And also there's lots of information. I mean, Somalia and Democratic Republic of Congo are kind of terrible places, but there's a very slap happy, oh, Africa is a vale of tears kind of attitude that a lot of people have. So it's good to actually figure out what the drought and the famine and the genocide and the civil war stuff is all about. And they provide a lot of that material, so the kids will be getting all that in and through this project. On April 23rd, they would like to dump 1 million bones on the National Mall, or whatever that's called in Washington, as part of a political thing. And $1 million will therefore go to these projects in DRC and Somalia, says the political output of it. So those are global things. Can I have 2 minutes? Two?
Yeah.
Okay. So, end of that.
We appreciate your information.
Locally, let me just say really quickly, I think there are tons of places you might not expect which are good for kids. In Skid Row, which you may think is totally off limits, there are 3 organizations which for different reasons are wonderful to work with. They are LANE, Los Angeles Alliance for New Economy. The Needle Exchange, believe it or not, is run by a guy, Mark Casanova, who's God's gift, and works with kids very well. And then there's a group called LA Can, I think I gave you the website, which works with housing and homeless people. And they have people doing intake. You can be a kid from the valley and just listen to people's stories as they come in, perfectly safe, blah, blah, blah. Other places, it's important to know Spanish, or maybe they don't have stuff during the week, but you can maybe arrange a weekend. Proyecto Pastoral has a lot of stuff like that. But you just have to suss out, like, what are the logistical barriers? Are the people there really going to be open? Homeboys Industries, let me just end with that, one of the glamour organizations in the world, and a great bunch of guys, I think is a nothing in terms of service work, because it's really just hard to do work there. It's a wonderful place to visit. They are geared to give you tours, and you understand a lot, you get connected to people, but I have found it really hard. Oakwood kids have worked there in the summer and been bored silly, because it's just like moving boxes in a warehouse. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.